Hello, everybody. We are back again. Fly or Lie, episode 8. Mitch, if you assume 4 weeks in a month, that makes us professional podcasters for 2 months starting today. We're
2 months.
we're kind of getting in a groove now, I think, right? We've had solid um, audio situations. We haven't had any issues with like dropping out. I think we're
We're
experts by now, right?
slightly improved every week. We even have an unofficial sponsor today.
We
We
do,
got
we
live.
do. I was gonna mention those our friends here as we go, but we can do that now. Mitch and I are both wearing new hats today. It's an update. It's a great update to our show. These hats were provided by our friends at 3570 Golf Co. Dan and Katie run that. They were on our podcast 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, we interviewed them, chatted with them, walked through amateur golf. Katie's an insanely good golfer herself. Dan is a golf coach and also, I believe, a very good golfer. So we talked to them about golf, competitive golf, all types of stuff 3 weeks ago. So you should go watch that episode if you haven't. But also, you can get one of these hats if you want. Go buy one of those. Or they're a clothing outfit shop. So go buy some polos or do some stuff. They're awesome. Give them their money because give them your money because they deserve it. Not sponsored, by the way, officially.
No, not at all.
They're just our friends now.
We just like them and their
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes. They're our friends now. They're great and their stuff is great. So go buy their stuff. Anyways, if you don't know who we are, we've like named a whole bunch of people already. We haven't even named ourselves. I'm Josh or Jish. You are Mitch. We are here Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central Normal Time, chatting amateur golf. That's what we know. We'll go through stories, golf info, tips, and tricks. We have done interviews. We've done a few interviews with amateur golfers and coaches, all kinds of stuff that amateur golfers get into. So if you're into that, follow our X account, subscribe on YouTube, do all that good stuff. We're trying to build a community of amateur golfers to hang out with and chat with all the time. So do that stuff. If you're here with us live, chat along if you want. I'm following the chat here. Mitch sometimes sees it, sometimes doesn't, but I'll acknowledge it. And if you got a good topic, we'll talk about it live. We'd prefer to talk to you guys because we'll eventually get sick of each other. So chat along if you're here. We will chat back with you. So that's the spiel. That's the intro, Mitch. And also, I decided before we started today, I declare today golf season. How do you feel about that in Minnesota? I declare today golf season. What do you think about that?
It sounds premature for Minnesota.
Whoa,
Not gonna lie. Am I? Ooh, we good?
you're good.
Maybe.
You're good.
So, it sounds a little premature, but I'll allow it because I have my first round of the year booked for Sunday. So today can be the official start to the year. I'm on board.
Fine. Okay. We'll call Sunday although okay, we'll call Sunday. Okay, I retract. It's not today anymore. It's not Sunday. Dan, by the way, Dan Winters is here. We shouted Dan out earlier. He's in the chat. He says love the hats. I'm sure he does. He created them.
Yeah, right.
We love them too. It's we were talking before we went live, Dan. Declared this my favorite hat of all time. I will wear it everywhere for everything, probably. Other than I also have this beautiful hat right here. Hold on. I think I'll pop this one on when I got to be a little more serious, maybe. We'll see. But anyways, love that. And by the way, this stuff in the back, these little holes there, I don't know why every hat in the entire world doesn't have those.
Yeah, and we need it. I know in Minnesota, we borderline, -20, -30, but every now and then we reach 95 plus, and we
Yeah,
need a little breathing air up here
yeah.
too.
The breathing space back there is key. Um, yeah. So, Mitch, there's some controversy on Twitter, sort of, kind of.
No, really? On
There
Twitter?
usually is. But this particular controversy I know fired you up, and we technically didn't have a topic for this episode like a few days ago. And this particular tweet fired you up, and I quote tweeted it. It got me a little pumped up as well. But this is more near and dear to your heart than it is to me. But it also fired me up a little bit too. So we have a topic, and we're gonna start there. And it's fitness and golf. That's where we're gonna go.
Sure.
Uh, should I just pull the tweet up and read it? What do you think?
Do it.
All right, let me do that. We should be able to see the tweet here. Yes. Okay. Here's the tweet. John Daly, our excellent fitness coach and golfer, John Daly, had a quote with golf.com, or maybe it wasn't golf.com, maybe it was somebody else, but golf.com tweeted it. He says, I think the hardcore working out is going to hurt these guys. And he isn't so sure the rise of intense fitness training in golf is actually helping. I think working out, a lot of guys lose their flexibility and they're mechanical, so they don't have a lot of flexibility. That means their bodies are not equipped to take the club as far back as I can, or not as fortunate to be as flexible as he can be. But they work strenuously on the game and getting their swing to the exact way they want it. But I think working out hurts a lot of these guys. I really do. Then he was asked what his workout routine was like, and he said, short game, practicing wedges and chips and putts. I could do that all day long. Mitch, why don't you
Well,
start us off? Because I know this fired you up. So you go ahead and lead us here.
yeah. Where do we even begin? Let's just start with
I wait,
his.
wait, wait. I know where we begin. I know where we
Okay.
begin. We begin by saying never take fitness advice from John Daly.
Yeah. That's a good spot to start. And I was going to say it like so for me, I love working out. I don't always look like it because I like eating too. I love
Yeah.
food and I ate some fucking Girl Scout cookies earlier and they were awesome. Uh, but I do enjoy going to the gym and trying to get stronger. So I'm going to start with what he said with about his workout routine being short game. That's not a workout. He's practicing.
Yeah, that's not a workout.
That's a separate thing altogether. So I'm not even sure what to do with that part of the comment other than say that's not a workout, it's practice. And everyone should be practicing those things if you want to get better at golf. Um, that has nothing to do with fitness or getting hurt or whatever you want to say. Just you have to practice your short game, you have to practice putting, you need to do those things to be better. But let's go to very first thing of they lose their flexibility. So
That's actually my favorite part.
I take issue with this in two different ways. One, flexibility is inherently genetic. Not everyone is going to be as flexible as the next person, and that's just going to be based on your genetic profile. John Daly is a very flexible person because he has good genetics. It has nothing to do with working out or anything like that. He just has good genetics that allows him to take the club back super far and still time everything up. But as far as working out, damage or hurting your flexibility, that's just not true. Like no studies suggest that. Some old studies, maybe from the 80s and 90s, thought so.
That was
Because in
my tweet. That was my tweet. My tweet literally said back in 1995 that was the thinking. I was 5 then, but I was starting to get into the age where getting into sports and people were sort of kind of talking about, ooh, maybe you should like try and lift heavier things if you're going to like be in sports. Back then, that was the, oh, I don't know if you want to do that if you're going to be a basketball player, for example, because your muscles are going to get bigger, so you're not going to be able, like this stuff here is going to be weird to like shoot. It's all going to change on you, and you're going to be screwed, and you're not going to shoot as good anymore. I had that given to me basically through high school. Don't
Mhm.
do too much working out like upper body because it'll mess up your jump shot. So
Yeah, and I'm sure LeBron James was horrible and isn't jacked, but
Right, exactly.
So
Although
like
he is
that,
a bad shooter, but
right. But as far as flexibility goes, like if you're going through a full range of motion, so like you're, let's say you're doing a shoulder press and you start from the shoulder and you go all the way up and you reach as far as you can and you do that with every repetition, how could that possibly make it so that you're only going to be able to do like this? Like just because you have more muscle mass, like
yeah,
that, it's illogical to begin with. And uh, yeah, anyway, it's plain illogical, and it's like
yeah,
squatting. If you squat ass to grass, you're going to have you're going to be able to lengthen the muscles more, and you're doing it under tension. So what a lot of fitness guys these days say is like, as long as you're going through a full range of motion, it's basically weighted stretching. That's what you're doing. You're stretching the muscle and the ligaments to the furthest point that they can go, and then back. And that's all it is. So it makes no sense that anyone would lose their flexibility doing that.
yeah. I think the just to pile on top of what maybe people think or thought is when you work out, your muscles in theory get bigger. So in theory, you in your box here only have so much space up, down, left, right. So if your muscles get bigger, you're taking up space that was open before for you to stretch or do whatever. So now your muscles are taking up the room. That is, I'm guessing that is what the belief is there, and probably it sounds like actually sounds exactly what John Daly's saying is that they work out, their muscles got too big, so they can't go this far because their muscles are getting in the way. I believe that was the popular thought. I'd be honest with you, I think that is still somewhat of a popular thought. I think there's guys like our friend Fit for Golf, Mike Carroll on Twitter. He's done a fantastic job in the golf world of trying to teach people that like working out is good for golf. It's not bad for golf. So,
Mhm.
and that all that stigma that if you get bigger muscles, they get in the way. Like that's just not true. That's not how it works.
Yeah, and maybe we should talk about that too, like gaining muscle mass in general. I don't think the lay person truly understands like how much effort and work it takes to build a significant amount of muscle mass. And again, it's going to come back to genetics and how fast you can put it on. And two, like the a person who's not taking steroids, especially after puberty, like once you get into your mid 20s, late 20s, you're going to be happy with putting on like 2 to 4 pounds of muscle per year, not
Right.
not not per month, like per year.
Right.
Like yeah, sure, when you go through puberty, you're going to put on a significant amount of muscle mass really fast because that's how it's supposed to work, but that's not the reality. Once you get into your late 20s, early 30s, like a couple pounds a year of added muscle mass is really good. You're going to get huge if you work out really hard, eat a lot, and take a ton of steroids. uh,
By the way,
don't
complete
do that.
half side note there. We need to bring steroids back to baseball. That's what we need to do.
Baseball was better with steroids.
Way
Everyone,
better. Way better. So
they
much better.
said,
I mean, rest in peace to the guys that their health is fucked because they took so many steroids. But as a viewer, give me all the steroids. Not me personally. Them take all the steroids, and I watch them do
yeah,
athletic things. Take all the
right, yeah.
steroids.
If a professional athlete wants to take steroids, and fine. So quick side note, because people get upset about the like the hitting records and stuff that happened during the steroid era, and that's what everyone focuses on, right? Is the
Yeah,
bad average, the home runs, all of this stuff. But what they fail to mention is that the pitchers were on steroids too.
yeah,
Like
for sure. Yeah,
so it was fairly evenly matched there.
yeah. Take all the steroids. I'm in. And by the way, how do you there's rumors going around the golf world that our friend Tiger Woods was on steroids. Do you believe that? I don't think I believe it, but maybe.
I wouldn't be shocked to hear that he's on testosterone. I mean, a guy in his late 40s, who started taking testosterone, I wouldn't be shocked in that. And he was recovering from a lower body injury. So it looked like he really bulked up the top. Maybe
It
that was just
did.
because he likes working out and all he could do was upper body stuff and he couldn't do any lower body. So I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked to hear that he was taking testosterone.
Me either.
But yeah,
Plus, he's got
I
access to the whoever the heck he wants to help him. If he wanted to get Jack, he could get Jack. So I don't think he needs performance enhancers to assist him. Uh,
anyway, so
anyways, back to our off the sidebar here.
yeah. So what else? What else do we got here? Oh, it's going to hurt guys. So that's another pain point for me when you're talking about working out, because lifting heavy objects in itself is good for the human body. We're supposed to do it. Yes, it's going to add muscle, but it's also going to create denser bones. It's going to strengthen your ligaments and tendons as well. So by lifting progressively heavier weight, not ego lifting, if you go out there and try to lift and you hurt yourself lifting because you're trying to lift more than what you should, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about progressively overloading on weight training. It's going to progressively get your muscles stronger, your tendons stronger, your ligaments stronger, and your bones denser. All of those things together will result in less injury because these guys are swinging a club head at 125 miles per hour. Like they're moving their bodies with an extreme amount of torque. And for their bodies to withstand that, they need all of those things to be stronger. So weightlifting is preventing injuries, not going to cause them.
Right. And again, back probably to the 90s or even before, the the standard thought there was that if you're working out at all, you're breaking down your muscles. They're in theory getting weaker, or you're putting more mileage on them. So over the long haul, they will eventually be weaker because you worked on them too much. Where today, and maybe there was some study that said that was true back in the day, but as you get older, obviously things start breaking down, but that has nothing to do with how much effort you're putting into using your muscles. That just has everything to do with as you age, you deteriorate. So there's you have to separate the two and say, as I'm getting older, I'm deteriorating. But if I'm working on my muscles and all those things, I'm strengthening them, so that actually delays the deterioration. Really, at that, so many studies have proved that. So, uh, yeah, the injury thing also makes me laugh because it's like, and it's always the back injuries that people are like, oh, he's working out, he's gonna break his back in half, and it's like, no, he's actually like that's going to help his strengthen his back and protect whoever it is their back from being injured sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Right.
it's
So
that the back injury one is my favorite of all of them, I think.
yeah, and again, the back injury is because of the amount of torque that they're putting on their bodies while swinging the club, not the working out. It's the torque from the swing.
Right.
Um, but I want to say this too when it comes to causing injuries. If weightlifting caused injuries, why would physical therapists, after somebody has shoulder surgery, knee surgery, or whatever it happens to be, why would they work with people to progressively lift more weight to improve the healing and keep the flexibility of the joint?
Exactly.
Like none of it makes any sense whatsoever what John Daly is saying here.
No.
Everything that we know today is contradictory to what he said there.
Yeah, all of it. Literally every single word. uh, I can read it a
And
hundred times. Almost every single word comes from a belief like in 1990, where it's like, if you want to be good at sports and be and have like longevity playing sports, you have to stay as far away from the gym as maybe get on a treadmill, but be careful on the knees with the treadmill. But stay way away from working out, because you're just gonna deteriorate all your muscles, and you're gonna be done by the age of 23.
yep, yeah, it's fascinating because then we can talk about health span too, and all that, and what comes from lifting. You know, you like you said earlier, you delay muscle atrophy. You don't want atrophy. And it's a similar concept to, if let's say a 25-year-old was in a car accident or something horrific where they're bedridden for months, they're going to lose a significant amount of muscle mass because they're just not using it. So, and that's really the crux of where I'm going with this, talking about health span, is we lose muscle mass because we don't use it. As you get older and older, you will naturally lose it, but you can prolong that for as long as you can for quite a while. I remember seeing one side by side. It's a MRI of muscle density in, I think it was a 75 or 80-year-old, two, like, both same age. One of them was a guy who ran marathons all the time, and somebody else was somebody who was sedentary. Like, they worked an office job, they don't really work out. Like, the amount of muscle from the person who ran marathons was significantly different. And I wish I had it so we could show people, but it's the entire concept makes no sense. Lift weights progressively in a safe way, try to get stronger over time, prolong muscle deterioration for as long as you can, and then maybe you can perform at a high level for longer. Like, maybe John Daly could have still been playing really well if he had worked out instead of, slamming 7 whiskeys, 20 Diet
That
Cokes, and 2 packs of cigarettes on the golf course every day.
that is the thing, and that now we can rope this. We can rope this right back to golf. We're getting back into our lane here. Well, fitness is your lane. Fitness is not my lane. We're getting back into both of our lanes. And we wrap it back into golf, and we can use John Daly as an example. If he had put any ounce of effort into literally anything, but working out in general, there's nothing saying that he couldn't have been the guy that just exploded the like long distance situations issue. Like, he's the longest driver on tour for however 2, 3, 4 years, however long it was. I don't remember exactly how long he was actually number one. But if he had been working out and could hit it farther, and he was hitting it 30 yards or 40 yards by Tiger, and he's the Cam Champ of that era, maybe we aren't even where we are in golf right now, because he would have been the one to prove that, like, hey, if you have this like natural gifted ability to play golf, which he did, and you also pair that with working out, which is what a lot of people do now, a lot of golfers are doing now, you can be insanely good. So it would have been amazing to see like what he could have changed the entire game of golf if he would have taken that initiative and tried to get stronger and hit the ball even farther. Dan says John's short game and hands are incredible. Spent some time with him over the years, just impressive. Yeah, I don't think he
Absolutely.
was lying when he said he practices short game. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the by the way, the benefits of doing any workout, just like get on a Peloton or whatever in golf, if you strengthen any muscle, like you use so many different muscles in golf, from damn near to your toes, to your fingers, to your neck, like all the muscles in between.
everything.
At some point you use all of them. So if you do any kind of working out, you don't have to do anything golf specific. You don't have to grab a weight and swing it like a golf club. Like that. That doesn't matter. You can do a squat. You can run on the treadmill. You can do box jumps. All of that is helpful for golf because you use a lot of those muscles doing all of that stuff. So when you do that, one, it's going to make you stronger. So obviously that's going to help you hit the ball farther, which everybody knows. If you hit the ball farther in golf, your scoring potential goes down, which means you're going to be a better scorer overall, over time, and you're going to like golf better. That's good. Two, it allows you to have less fatigue on the golf course, which for me personally is important as somebody who likes to walk the golf course a lot. You can go the entire round if you're working out and getting in shape. You can go the entire round and get done, and maybe I can play another 9 holes. There's so many people that I play golf with that finish 18 holes and they can barely walk. So that one, that's not enjoyable because you're in pain at the end. But two, like your day is pretty much ruined. So you get, not only do you get the benefit of improving your golf game, but you also get the benefit of improving how you feel about yourself after the golf game or even during, so you're not tired. You can go home, you can do more things, you can cut the grass and you go home, you can do all sorts of stuff. So there's just so many life benefits, obviously, but also we're a golf podcast, so we talk about golf. You just, if you put some effort into fitness and golf, it will make your golf game better. Just
Hmm.
100% of the time.
Yeah. So some people come back and argue and say, they work out, they try to swing the club really fast, and then it hurts their short game. And they lose touch. You hear that a lot. They lose touch. And people lose touch because they don't practice it enough.
Exactly right.
Like I think I brought this up on one of our podcasts a few weeks ago, is that that those feel shots that you're always doing from 20 to 30, 40, 50, whatever yardage it is, you only develop the feel because you hit the shot thousands of times. You just know it when you see it. Like, you just know what to do with your hands and everything. So yeah, it might appear like somebody's wedge game or putting is slacking, but is it because they were working out and trying to gain clubhead speed, or was it because they sacrificed practicing putting and chipping to do more weight training and speed training? Like, that's the question.
That is, I don't even think it's a question. I think that's 100% true. I think that's the thing a lot of amateur golfers will run into is how you spend your time. And if you want to get better at golf, you have to know your game well enough to know where you need to spend your limited time. So if you have an hour and you know that you aren't long enough for you to long term score well, then you should spend some of that hour working out. And then if your short game gets a little worse, the trade off there is your off the tee game got better, you got longer. Off the tee game got better, you got shorter shots into the greens, you're getting shorter putts, so you're making a few more putts. Your scoring probably going to go down, even though your chipping might have gotten a little bit worse because you couldn't spend a lot of time on it. But overall, we're looking at the overall picture here. You actually ended up getting better because you put time into something that made you as a golfer better. So that is an interesting thing where people say I worked on something and something else got worse. Well, yeah, because we don't have unlimited time. So something you're going to have to sacrifice something somewhere, and for a lot of people, you could afford a couple less chips and putts in the backyard or on the carpet in the house and a little more lifting weights. It will make you a better golfer for most people.
Mm-hmm. Long
So
game is important, short game is important. You need it all. So
yeah,
anyway, that might be enough of my ranting about exercise and John Daly's tweet. Um, just again, take some time, do some weight training throughout the week. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. 2 to 3 days lifting. Do some compound weights, a chest press, a shoulder press, a pull up or lat pull down, squat, lunge. Just do some stuff that's resistance training and try to get stronger over time. That's it. Keep it.
100%. Yes. And yeah, to start tomorrow. That's what you should do.
Yep.
Uh let's segue into our lesson. We spent a lot of time on John Daly,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
good. It's fitness is important for especially people that are competing. It's like staying in shape and stuff. It's super important.
Mhm.
So important topic. But to our lesson for today, I want to talk about Mitch, something that a lot of people probably don't think about ever, and they should. Well, good golfers don't need to think about these things because it's kind of ingrained in them and they've done it for so long. But uh, a large percent of amateur golfers don't think about a lot of these things, and it could help them be better golfers. And this is, I want to talk about things you need to think about before you pull a club out of your bag to hit a golf ball. So, club selection, basically, and how to think about club selection and things to pay attention to so you know you have the right club in your hand. So, I came up with over time, I've come up with 5 things that are absolutely 100% You need to know them before you grab a club out of your bag, or you should not ever grab a club out of your bag. You should know these 5 things. I'm going to run through these 5 things with everybody. What do you think about that, Mitch? Sound
Let's
like a
do it.
plan? All righty. And I'm going to do our favorite thing here. I'm going to pull up Microsoft Paint so I can write them down, and then everybody can just stare at them instead of staring at our face.
Cue the paint sound effects.
Paint. I got to pull it up first, though. Paint right here, and it's right there. Boom. All right. So you hit the ball off the tee on your first shot. You get to the ball in the fairway or in the rough or wherever it is. The number one thing that you need to do, number one, look at your lie. Your lie is going to tell you a lot about how before you even like when your club meets the ball, your lie is going to tell you a lot about what your ball is going to do, regardless of what you even do with your swing. First of all, you need to think about is your lie, are you in the fairway? Is the grass short? Are you in light rough? Is the grass long? Are you in thick rough? You need to think about how like the grass, literally think about the grass that your ball is sitting on. So, if you're in the fairway, obviously you don't need to adjust too much. If you're in light rough, you're going to need to add a couple yards. If you're in long rough, you might need to add an entire club. You just have to consider where your ball is sitting and how it's sitting in its lie. That's just the grass part. Grass.
What if it's a flyer lie?
That's next. That's part of the next. Well, I guess that kind of segues into it. If it's a flyer lie, as our podcast is named, a flyer lie is your ball is here and you're going this way, and this is the grass right here. It's pointing to where your target is. So just the science that happens here, when you hit this, it's going to just shoot off here, and it's probably going to gain a lot of times I play for like half a club or even a full club. So when you're thinking about the grass that your ball is sitting on, yes, pay attention to the direction that the grass is facing. If it's facing back at you, going this way, your club is going to get stuck in here before it hits the ball. So your club speed is going to go down, which means you're not going to hit it as far, which means you're going to need more club. A lot of times when you're in the rough, this is your situation. The grass is either sticking straight up and it's in your way, or it's sticking back at you. So for the most part, you're going to need to take extra club if it's in the long grass. But if it is in the situation where the grass is kind of going with you, we call that a flyer lie. That's our saying here, and the ball's going to kind of jump on you. It's going to go a little farther. Part two of the lie is the direction that the ground is sitting, or where the ball is based on where your feet are. So if you're get to your ball and the ball is below where you're standing, meaning the ground is going left to right, if you're a right-handed golfer, inherently when you contact the ball is going to want to start going to the right. So the ball is going to want to start going the way that the ground is facing. That's the same for any direction that the ground is facing. If the ground is pointing to the right, ball is going to go to the right. If the ground is pointing to the hole, you're going to get a little more speed going down the hill because it's going to come out lower and hotter. If it's pointing backwards, the ball is going to want to pop up in the air a little more. So you have to think about not only the how the grass is that you're sitting in, but also the direction that the ground is facing. Those two things are the start of how you're gonna pick, what club you're gonna work on. You're gonna pick out. And by the way, for a lot of like higher level amateurs, they don't think about this stuff. Like they don't go to their ball and say, I have to think about this for a long time. It's just inherent. You look down at the ball, you say, oh, long grass is kind of facing at me. I got to grab another club of whatever I'm going to choose. So, but I see a lot of amateurs that just have no clue. They just go up and they're like, oh, it's just kind of there. I'll just hit the club I always hit. And then they end up being short and then it's a disaster. So number one, look at where your ball is sitting in the grass and how it's facing and what the ground is like. Number two, wind. As you're standing there looking at your lie, just pay attention to the wind that's around you, which direction it's going. If it's coming into your face or it's behind you, you play it a little differently. And there's a calculation here if you want to do the math. I do the math every single time. I know before I get to the golf course what the wind direction and speed is. So I'm prepared to do the math. But the super simple math is when the wind is into you or coming into your face, you add 1% to the yardage for every yard. So if you have a 150-yard shot and it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind directly in your face, you would take 10% of that and you would add it on. So your 150 shot now becomes a 165-yard shot. On the contrary, if the wind is at your back, you take half of that. So the wind, by the way, impacts your golf ball more when it's coming at you than it does when it's behind you, and it's about half of that. So it's 5% at your back. So in the same scenario, you have a 150-yard shot, 10-mile-an-hour wind behind you. You take 5% of the 150, it's 7.5. So your shot is 142, 143, 7.5 yards, somewhere in there. So, and if you struggle with the math, 10% is really, really easy, and you can work off of 10%. This is how I do it because I'm really bad at math in my head. I'll always start at the 10% number, which is a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and then I'll adjust from there. So if it's a 5-mile-an-hour wind, then I know I just cut it in half. If it's a 20-mile-an-hour wind, I know I double it. So you can make the math really easy by just doing the 10% because the 10% math itself is easy in that you take whatever number it is. If it's 150, if the number is 150, you take whatever number it is and you just move the decimal place one spot. So 110% of 150 is 15. So that's how I got to the 165. Obviously 150 plus the 15, 165. So, and then if you have to adjust from there, obviously, if I have to double it, if it's 20 miles an hour, I have the 15, I double it to 30. Now my shot's 180. So you can always just start at the 10% and work your way around from there. It'll massively, massively help you understand how the wind is going to impact your ball. And for most people, the longer it gets away, it gets really hard to tell yourself that you need to add 20 yards to whatever shot it is you're going to hit because the wind is you can sometimes just barely even feel the wind. You can get to a 200-yard shot and the wind is actually going to impact it by 20 yards and you're like, "Ooh boy, I don't know." So you got a 220-yard shot, you grab your 205 club and it ends up 20 yards short. And all you had to do is do this math and that would have saved you. So, pay attention to the wind and do the math for the wind. Make sure you know what the wind is. It will bigly help you, especially if you play in places that are windy all the time. It's pretty windy in Minnesota all the time, so it's very helpful here. 3. Hey, it's only been 10 minutes. I went through 2. That's pretty good, Mitch. 3, elevation. Obviously, this is the hitting up a hill or hitting down a hill situation. And there really is no like special formula or anything. It's just something you should understand that if you're hitting it up onto a hill, it's going to add yardage, so you're going to need to take a little extra club, add a few yards. If you're going downhill, obviously, you're going out and part of your yardage is down, so it's just falling. So you're losing yardage, so you can take a little bit less club. For most holes, unless you're playing up in the bluffs or in the mountains somewhere, a lot of courses, elevation on most holes, it's not enough where you need to like change an entire club for elevation. But if you're kind of stuck in the middle where you're like, boy, I could hit 8-iron or I could hit 9-iron here and it looks like it's uphill, adjust for the uphill and take the extra club because you're going to need some extra club, some extra distance to get it up there. So pay attention to the uphills and the downhills. Again, if for the most part, unless it's way uphill or way downhill, it's not going to impact a ton, but it does matter a little bit. So pay attention to the elevation. 4. Now we're getting into the sort of picking the actual club territory. Fourth thing you need to pay attention to is your cover numbers, or what I'll call your avoidance numbers. These numbers are the numbers you need to know that you absolutely avoid trouble. Trouble being water or bunkers or things of that nature. For example, if you're approaching the green and there's a bunker in the front of the green, you absolutely 100% need to know what the minimum yardage is you need to hit to not hit it into that bunker. Same as if, there's water in front of the green, or if you're on the tee box and there's kind of like a river that cuts in front of the fairway or something, you need to know what the minimum yardage is to make sure that you do not end up in whatever that issue is. So before you even take your number to whatever your target is going to be, which will be number 5, by the way, before you even take that number, you need to figure out what the numbers are of stuff you need to avoid. Stay away. Cover. Cover. Avoid. And by the way, a lot of times the cover number, one of the cover numbers you'll need to know is the front of the green. Because Mitch, as we've mentioned lots of times, the main goal when you're approaching the green is to get the ball onto the green. That's all you need to do. You don't need to hit it close to the hole. Your ball just needs to be on the green. To get the ball on the green, you need to get it past the front of the green. So to cover the front of the green is a very important number to know. That's not the number that you should pick your club from. It's a number that should be in your mind that says, whatever club I have in my hand, it has to beat that number. No matter what the club is, it just has to beat that number.
Mhm.
So, cover number, avoid number, big numbers. By the way, another avoid number would be like, if again you have that river cutting across the fairway and it's at 270 and your driver goes 270, then you need to know that 270 is the max and you pick something less than 270. You also need to know like what is too far as well in that situation. So number 5, finally, this is the last step. Now you finally are getting your target number, which, Mitch, is not always the flag. Not
It's
always the
almost never the flag.
Almost never the flag. If the flag's in the middle of the green, fine, it can be the flag. But a lot of people will shoot the flag, which is fine, and that might give you a good number. But also pay attention to where the flag is. So you may need to add, if the flag is tucked front right and it's 150, well, that's not my target. My target is past that because I need to put my circle past that. So my target is 150 plus 5. Now my actual target is 160. So target is not the flag. Target is the center of where your circle is, as we've talked about in the past. So that's the last step. You have to pay attention to all those other things: the lie, the wind, the elevation, all the cover numbers, all that stuff. Finally, you get your target number, and then you take your target number, by the way. So you get your target number and you take into account all the things we just did and then adjust your target number to then be able to pick your club. So, as a very simple example, we've kind of been going over it. We got a green that's basically on a flat elevation. Pin is right in the middle. We got a 10-mile-an-hour wind into our face, and we're sitting in the fairway. So our math here is we're in the fairway. We don't have to adjust for that. We have 10 miles an hour wind in our face. That tells me that the target that I hit at 150 needs to add 15 yards. There's nothing I need to worry about to cover. So my 150 shot is a 165 shot because the pin is right in the middle of the green. I can take that as my target and go right at it. 165 is my number. Now I go to my bag and I find the club that gets me around 165. Keeping in mind, by the way, when we grab our clubs, our yardages are not one single number. Our yardagers have a range. So pitching wedge, our range can be 140 to 145. We can hit anything in between there. Keep that in mind when you're picking clubs. It's very funny where people will be like, my pitching wedge goes 135, and then it's like, okay, does it also go 130, or is 135 the minimum? Because now we're in cover avoid territory. Because if you say your pitching wedge goes 135, but it actually can go 130 and it actually can go 137, you're in trouble with your cover in terms of getting on the green, or if you're covering a bunker, you're in trouble with hitting it into the bunker. So remember that when we're picking our clubs, we have a range, we don't have a single number. My rant is over, I think.
Whew, that was quite the monologue.
That was a lot of talking. What
Straight like 8 minutes.
is there anything in there that you want to jump on top of that you
Um,
disagree? Is there anything you think people should think more about? What do you think?
so I want to jump back to the lie, think a little bit more about that. I like what you said about, understand what a flyer lie is. Is the rough, is the grain going into you? Is it straight up? Like, and understanding that. I think another thing a lot of people need to understand, especially if they encounter, most amateurs aren't going to face this because they cut the rough fairly short at municipal courses and other courses. But if you find yourself in a little bit longer grass, the right play, or you might say like, I need an extra 20 yards of distance on this. But if you're already hitting a 6 iron, going to a 5 iron or a 4 iron is actually going to make it more difficult, and you're going to hit the ball even shorter because it's not going to have the trajectory launch to get above the grass line fast enough, and it's going to slow the ball down even more. So in a case like that, your option might actually be, I need to take less club, get more loft, and just get the ball out of there and onto the fairway and just live for my next shot. I think that's the only thing with the lie that I really thought of, other than what you had mentioned, is that sometimes the option is more loft and accept that you're going to be hitting a third shot into this par four.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of these things, by the way, could dictate if you can even get it to the green. Whether that's like you said, the lie, if the lie is shitty, or if you're in a lie where also, by the way, there's a tree branch or a tree root or just a tree in front of you, like all that stuff matters, where maybe you have to change your decision making. If the wind is so crazy that whatever club you're about to hit can't get it to where you need to go, then maybe you take a different route. If the if there's a hole that's like a million miles uphill, and if you're shooting the flag and it says it's 210 but it's a million miles uphill, and if it hits the hill and rolls down the hill and goes in the water, maybe you need to think about that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's decision making definitely comes into play with all of this. As soon as you figure out, what all of that means in terms of what the shot requires, and if you can't pull it off, then you need to think about something else. So, by the way, Dan says when he caddies for Katie, Dan Winters, expert golf coach and caddy for expert golfer Katie, most of the time they talk cover, and then they talk the hole. That
Yep.
follows in line with my you start at 4 and then you go to 5.
Yep.
That conversation helps
Cover,
dictate the shot needed. Yep.
right. And that was where I wanted to go next too, talking about cover. And when you said, we have a range of yardages with any certain club. And when you're thinking about cover and your club choice, it has to be, if you need to cover 130 and your pitching wedge or 9 iron is a 130 to a 142 club, then is it even enough? Because what if you have one of those outlier shots where it goes 128, but your cover's 130 on the dot? So that's another thing to think about too. Is like, if you're right on the number, you might just want to club up just in case, because let's say your pitching wedge is a 130 to 142 club, but your 9 iron is a 135 to a 150 club for whatever reason, right?
Yep.
Like, then you just take the 9 iron because you know the 9 iron is going to absolutely 100% cover, no matter what the outcome of the shot. Like if you hit it relatively square, it's going to cover. So understanding your range of outcomes with any particular club is super important for when you know what you have to cover.
For sure. Yep, 100%. And the more we're talking about the cover numbers and stuff, and I mentioned, you should know the front of the green number. The one thing that I mostly dislike when I see going around Twitter or around social media from coaches or just people trying to give swing advice or golf advice is the advice where people say just shoot the back of the green number and then take that as your club. I can't stand that because yeah, so basically what that's telling people to do is for the most part people overestimate how far they can hit the ball. That's the
Yep.
point. So they say take the back number because that's just going to make sure that you are are getting it far enough because you're basically tricking yourself by taking the back number.
Mhm.
Where if you actually just do kind of these steps that we outlined and the range of your clubs like we're talking about, then you don't need the back number as long as you know the range of your clubs. The number you actually care about is the front because you need to get it on the front. If the number you take is the back and then you actually hit it good, now you're off the back because your circle of outcomes, if you take the back number, now includes behind the green, which by the way, on a lot of greens is worse than being in front of the green. so every time I see that, it makes me a little annoyed because it's Dan says he wishes people knew how far they actually hit the ball. That is a tough conversation when you work with somebody. Yes.
Mhm.
And
It's fair.
fair, it is a fair point, and it's hard for a lot of amateurs to figure that out themselves if they don't have access to equipment to do that. Um, and if you're just out playing like one or two times a week, if you're just out there and you hit a 9 iron to a green and the green said it was 150 and then you went 150, now you think that's your number, where all sorts of factors could have came into play there. So I agree. If you can figure out what your numbers are, you should absolutely do that. Um, yeah, Dan is right. That is probably a struggle for people that can't figure out the numbers.
Yeah, generally. And I want to disagree with you a little bit because
Uh oh,
I like the back of the green strictly because for most people, not the better you get, the better you are at knowing your number. But for the vast majority of people, they do overestimate how far they hit it.
for sure.
And they usually take what you just said, they say I hit this club this far because they hit it that far one or two times in their life. And they think they hit it that far, but what they don't understand is that was the outlier long shot.
Yep.
So, if it's a 160 yards to the back of the green, they might think they need a 9 iron because they hit, or it's 160 yards to the middle. They think they need a 9 iron because it goes 160, but they only hit that 9 iron 160 like two times,
Yeah.
year. So it's really an 8 iron. So if they would just shoot the back of the green and say, okay, I need an 8 iron, they're probably going to have more positive outcomes than negative outcomes. They might still end up past the green, but they're more likely to end up on the green.
Yeah. I hate it. Here's how I'll say it. I know exactly why, and this is exactly why you said it. You're tricking yourself into picking another club because the reality of what the outcome is going to be is not what you have told yourself is the reality. Dan says you can go on and on with this subject for days. Me too. Uh, so anyway,
We'll
so
revisit it.
we certainly can, and we're running out of time too. So the reality of what you think is going to happen and the reality of what actually is going to happen are two different things. So you're tricking yourself into the reality of what is actually going to happen, which is fine. The reason I hate it is that I think if you all golfers should, if you want to be, let's say, if you want to be better at golf or be good at golf, you should know how far your clubs go. You should know all of those things. So if you take the time and the effort to figure out the cover to the front or the cover over a bunker, and then you know what your clubs are, the back number is actually irrelevant. So that's why I hate it, because to me, the back number is mostly irrelevant because I want to get the ball on the green. I don't want it to go over the green. But fair point that for the people that don't know any of that stuff, I guess you can pick the back number because it will trick you.
Yep. Trick
Fair.
yourself because it'll help. It'll help you hit more greens in regulation and you'll score better.
Fair. Okay, you know what? If you don't know your numbers, you are allowed to do that. But I
Deal.
think I think you should
That's
know
a
your
fair
numbers.
compromise.
I think you should know your numbers.
Yeah, you should.
There are a lot of resources nowadays, by the way, where you can do that for free or for relatively low dollars.
Yeah. Speaking of knowing your number, I think next week we have a guest coming on who's going to talk about a application that he created that helps us all know our numbers with
Yes.
shot pattern. And I am super excited for it. And I'm mostly super excited because that was an awesome segue, and I don't know if we'll ever get that again.
That was an
We're getting better at
insane
podcasting.
segue by you. You are an expert podcaster now. All it took was 2 months. Look at us.
Yeah. But anyway, we got shot pattern on next week. I'm excited. I know you're excited too. It's
Yes.
gonna be a fun one. We love talking about target selection and all that here because
Yeah,
it's a super important subject.
this is data nerd overload stuff for me. So I'm gonna be on cloud nine for this because I love all this stuff. I've DM'd them a couple times about things or sent them messages about things about their app that I thought could maybe be more helpful than the way it is, even though it's extremely good as it is. So yeah, I'm excited too. So the golf nerd stuff, man, that gets me every time. So
I know we could sit here and talk all night, but should wrap it up.
yeah,
So you guys know what to do. Make sure you like us on like this, share it on X, come subscribe, comment on YouTube. We appreciate you guys following along. We appreciate you guys chatting with us, and we really appreciate.
yeah. Go buy one of these hats.
Yeah, 3570. You know where it's
Ozzy.
at. Unofficial sponsor. We love them.
We're adopting
comment.
Ozzy as our podcast guy. He's our guy now.
Write it down.
All right, we will be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Normal Time.